Hello, everyone. I'm Asha Nayaswamy, and I'm here with Kshama Kellogg. She's the director of our Living Wisdom High School in Palo Alto and is longtime devotee. Those of you who've seen the earlier versions know a little bit more about her. So I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to send you to those earlier conversations. Today, we want to talk about creative self-expression, which we've talked about a lot with Tandava, especially, but I think the way Kshama will wants to talk about it, and I with her, is from a slightly different angle. So it was a topic that we agreed upon together, but give me an idea of what it is that you think we have to offer today, Kishon.
Um, I guess the thought was to share a little bit about experiences of for me the experiences have come through working with some of our art and consciousness, creativity and consciousness leaders and teachers within Ananda. So Dana Anderson and Carrie Ann James in particular, but really the experience of how we move energy or loosen up vrittis or work through coming into deeper understandings with ourselves through the process of creativity and art.
Well, that sounds terrific. I've never worked with Carrie Ann, but I've worked with Dana on several occasions, and I know exactly what you're talking about, but our listeners might not. So why don't we just start at the beginning? Why did you think this was an important topic? What experiences have you had that seem worth sharing? You can just dive right in.
Um, my experience has been that art, I think for a lot of us and for me in some ways, has sort of felt like this external on the wall expression of excellence and maybe beauty or making a radical statement or something like that. But I up until a few years ago, I didn't have a really strong experience. I remember loving art as a child,
Uh-huh.
but as an adult, it was something that felt very foreign and not accessible, and a little bit stress inducing.
Uh-huh.
And so I've had a chance to work closely with both of these great souls, and also just explored more and more on my own through different vehicles. But I've been absolutely just blown away at how powerful creativity is a tool for transformation when we stop looking at as a product based endeavor and step into it and into the process of creativity and unlocking what it is that's inside of us.
Okay, now we have to ground this in actual experience. So,
Okay.
what happened to you? When did it happen? Why did it happen? Were you dragged kicking and screaming? Did you run joyfully? What happened to you? How old were you?
um,
Was it?
okay, so I guess actually, Asha, I shared with you my first workshop with Dana.
Uh-huh.
Um, we were in Portland. It was after a um, a performance presentation that had been created by a fellow devotee, Christy, about the life of some of the direct disciples of Master.
Mhm.
We were in Portland doing this presentation and other expression of art, which has also helped me loosen up a lot of the knots that I have tied up inside.
Uh-huh.
And we went to do a workshop with Dana at the Ananda Center at Laurelwood. And
I'm going to
she,
interject for just a second. Dana is a brilliant, wonderful painter. Dana
yes,
Lynn Anderson. You can find all her work. She has an academy called the Academy of Art and Consciousness. But she does two kinds of workshops. She takes really good artists and makes them great, and then she takes people like us and takes us back to being 4 years old again. So we were in the 4-year-old category. So go on.
yeah.
Mhm.
And it was an experience of play. It was pure play, especially at the beginning. And one of the ways that she loosens people up is she has us do a lot with just water on paper to start with. And so you're pouring water on paper, you can't see anything, you're moving your hands, you're starting to feel the textures, um, and allow your body to move. I don't know about all of you, but I feel like societally we move through the world a little bit rigid in terms of how we move our body, use our body, what's acceptable socially in different settings and things. And so I was carrying a fair amount of rigidity. Um, and it immediately it started for me to just loosen me up to something that I hadn't experienced in a long time, of flow and an ease and a playfulness and a lack of worry about what it was going to look like because you couldn't see it anyway. And then she in that workshop she started introducing us to really really watered down paint, and again just splash it onto your paper, pour it on, take a paintbrush and see what happens, use your hands, always keep your body flowing and in motion. So it was like weaving together this experience of kinesthetic um, relationship and movement with a kind of a get out of your head and just see what happens. And then she later in the workshop she took us through some experiences of physically embodying our artwork. And I've had a chance to work with this in a number of different ways over different.
Look,
Mm,
you have to take us back to that, Kashama, because we had to make drawings, and I have never. I'll just interject here. For the first time in my life, I tried to say something with abstract color. I,
mm,
I tuned into certain emotional realities, positive and negative, and I tried to say them in colors. It was a whole never, ever, ever for all the reasons that you say. Then she sent us outside in partners. We had to put down our paintings. You won't believe this. We had to dance. The I think we had to dance the other person's painting, or maybe we had to dance our own. But I remember you and I looked at each other and was like, "Are you out of your mind? This is the stupidest, craziest thing we've ever heard."
and yet,
And yet,
what
that
did we walk away with?
yeah. Tell
It's
me what
it
happened
was
to you. Uh-huh.
that experience. I think more was getting past the mortification of having to move and dance to the energy of my painting and your painting. And but it started to break something in me, some subconscious resistance to, or maybe habit of taking myself too seriously. I don't know what it was, but it shook me, and I left the workshop wanting to know more, wanting to understand more about what that was doing and what kind of experiences could come through. Um,
So now you have to tell me what kind of experiences can come through. Why were you so rigid? What was behind all of that? I mean, I was there with you, so I remember, but tell me
yeah,
about yours.
yeah. Um, I'm gonna zoom out. We're focusing in on these workshops with Dana. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit because I feel like Ananda as a movement and as a place and a home and a community um, will ask of all of us in different ways to step into certain aspects of ourselves that we would never have the opportunity to tap into otherwise, or likely we wouldn't. And so I've had so many mentors and supporters who've helped me um, learn to express myself and tap into a deeper inner reality through music and through theater and through art and all of these things that I wouldn't naturally allow myself to be drawn to.
Why would you not
Um,
naturally allow yourself to be drawn to them if they were in you to be expressed?
they're they take you into such a vulnerable place, I think.
Mhm.
I had an experience as a little girl in this incarnation. I have no idea what the deeper layers of all of this means for me, but I had an experience when I was maybe about 11. I was living in the Ananda Assisi Center with my family, and I'd been invited to join the choir as a child. And everyone was magnificent. I was cared for in the most glorious way, and I was asked to sing a solo at a Christmas concert. And I knew the song, I was ready, and then I got up and Um, it was like an in the middle of a song solo, and so my verse came, and I started to sing, and it was the wrong verse,
Huh.
and
Uh-huh.
I was absolutely horrified. Why I reacted that way, I don't know. We all, I think, experience embarrassment and things, but it was a really strong um, experience, and I don't have any recollection of singing after that.
Huh. Huh.
Like I just stopped.
I see.
Um, and so, whatever past experience brought me to responding in that way, whatever it was in me that reacted so strongly, I created some kind of an energetic block. And um, it wasn't until 20 years later, 15 years later, that I was in Palo Alto in the community here, and Karen Gamel came after me in the most loving but persistent way. And she just, first it was, can you sing? And my response was like, not really. And then she had me sing, and she said, yeah, actually, you can. And then I started, um, and it was some of the most terrifying, vulnerable, just I don't know, experiences that I'd had, and then she asked me to sing solos, and I have had. I'm starting to move through it, I think, but I just had these visceral reactions to being asked to serve in that way, to express in that way, and she didn't give up on me. And then I was drawn in by other really, really dear friends, Christy and Mahavir, to help with theater. And again, it was like, I don't want to do that. But somehow it happened, or I was able to say yes, or whatever it was. And at first it was, okay, I'll try to be helpful because I know it's the right thing, and it's needed and stuff. But then I started realizing how much it was actually working on me.
Mhm.
Um, and the same thing um, with the visual art expressions and the working with art, color, texture, movement, all of that. They've become ways for me to start stripping away or untying some of these knots, that I have in my energetic system that are not serving and are really, really restrictive.
When I read Swami Kriyananda's book, Art is a Hidden Message, which has been mentioned many times during these conversations with everyone,
Yeah.
I was almost shocked by what he'd written there because essentially what he says is in order to become a saint, you have to first become an artist. And he doesn't, the sentence never goes quite like that, but in order to become a saint, you have to liberate yourself from all emotional constriction. And art, because you can't be a saint and also be tied up in knots about all your feelings. And artistic self expression is one of the most dynamic ways and the most powerful ways to bring to the surface emotions and then clarify and ultimately release them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just summarize what I learned from Dana. Dana says Dana herself is a professional artist and has been for much of her life. She said at some point the art became owned by professionals, people who love art of all kinds, theater, music, etc. They Those who manage to make their careers in artistic fields are often some of the most unhappy professionals in the world because it moves only to being judged for your perfection. In every traditional society, she said, art is a natural, integrated part of human life. You bead your moccasins, you put a mandala on your doorstep in the morning. The warriors get together and sing their war songs before they go off. The people who row the boat sing their songs. The women quilt together and have their chants. You sing the bride into her new home. But in our society, as Dana put it, and so therefore emotions are processed in the course of natural life by artistic self expression. In our society, because we have removed art artistic expression from the common man. And even so far as we have it, it's only about perfection. She said, we only have two ways of dealing with our emotions. One is to suppress them, and the other is to project them onto others. I mean, all of that is big. So let's go back to why you find music, painting, theater. Like, how is it unraveled? You said it, but
Yeah.
what does it mean to you?
Um, I guess I can share a few more just very specific moments with each of these that really demonstrated a stripping away of karmic vrittis, entanglements. Um, when I when I first came to the community, I experienced a number of years, probably 2 or 3 years, where I had so much restriction in and around my heart and throat chakra that I had a hard time breathing deeply, even to the point that when I received Kriya, it was really hard to practice.
Hmm.
And I I mean, I remember not being able to take a deep breath and feeling so just constricted. Um, and at some point, along with Karen's support, I had come to you and I'd come for a counseling session, and a lot of things that I shared with you at the end of it, you came back to me and you said, I really think that you need to sing more and you need to be in the choir and you need to immerse yourself in Swami's music. And you explained further about how important that was for opening up these energetic blocks. I heard some of that in the state of consciousness that I was in, and in some ways, I walked away from the meeting feeling like, well, that was unhelpful. I love you, Asha, and it
Well, of
was
course,
extremely helpful. But I couldn't.
I
I'm
completely get
having this issue, and she's telling me to go sing.
it. Yeah.
um, and but then I did, and I started noticing that I could breathe and that I could I don't know, there was just an opening that happened. And then so I kept working on solos and trying to get over all of those moments. And I was at service one day and I had a solo. Karen had given me another one, and I was really going through sort of the experience of, well, you feel calm now, but you know you're going to freak out. So how are you going to handle that? And I think the knowing that I was going to have a hard time was tripping me up even more. And one of our fellow singers, there, four of them were singing, practicing before service, um, the Temptation of Christ,
Uh-huh.
and um, and Navashan started singing Jesus's part, "Get thee behind me," Jesus declared, and I felt the the quality of self-doubt that was so influencing my consciousness. I felt it literally like a physical force that moved behind me.
Wow.
Like I just pushed it back and I could feel it kind of there, but it wasn't in front of me anymore. And it was the first time that I got up that day and I sang, and it was not a perfect performance. Most of them haven't been, but it was the first performance where I enjoyed the experience and I felt an energy flowing through me rather than this like trying to make something happen.
Wow. Did it stay with you? Was that a permanent shift?
Incrementally, yes.
Okay.
It's still not completely clear, but it is so much more so now. So yeah,
Well,
in a lot of ways.
this is precisely what Swami says. When we energy has its own intelligence. Suppression is not fruitful. If we start the energy moving, then the energy itself begins to teach us.
Mm.
So there you were, you had to do it. And then God sent you "Get thee behind me, Satan," right at the moment that you needed it.
Yeah.
Do you sing that song to help
Yeah,
yourself?
I do.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be certainly worthwhile to do. What was your
Yeah, it's good medicine.
what was your solo that day, just out of curiosity? Can you remember? It's not important if you don't remember.
Um, I'm not entirely certain. It might be, um
But
no, I'm not sure.
the song itself doesn't turn out to be
I'm not sure.
important.
It was the experience that came through. So I no, I don't remember what song it was.
So after your first experience with color and art with Dana, did you experience a similar freedom? What happened to you from that?
I've gone back and done a number of week-long programs with her. I haven't yet been able to do the summer intensive that she offers, but I've done 2 week-longs, and um, it's been some of the scariest work that I've done, and some of the most uh, freeing, thrilling, absorbing. I feel like meditation for me is
Uh-huh.
a very subtle experience, and I know that Kriya is working on me, but I'm not often completely conscious of how it's changing me or moving my energy. And these experiences in the moment were whoa, and then the lasting afterwards, I could feel them in action also.
Now, these experiences are you with some physical medium, like chalk or paint or collage or something,
Yep.
and you describe this as some of the scariest moments in your life. I mean, I believe you. I believe you. I just wanted to highlight that. That is what you just said, isn't it? Essentially, or is it having to do
Yeah,
with
it
the
for
transcendence?
me, it's not so much putting things down on the page, although I've had to learn to be more free with that.
Uh-huh.
But almost always there's a pairing with these. So you go through a process of working with getting out of your left brain and into a creative space.
Hmm.
Then there's joining that with body movement experience. Then there's creating something.
Right.
And then there's understanding it and interpreting it. And that for me is where it gets a little dicey. Um, but that's where the power has been personally.
So what you're actually saying is your artwork tells you something about yourself you didn't know. Is that what you mean?
And it's become on a number of occasions. I would love to say that I do this daily or weekly or anything. I don't, but on a number of occasions, it's become like a living, breathing extension of me.
Uh-huh.
And so, in relationship to it, I can actually see physically the changes that are happening inside as they're expressed on the collage or the painting or the whatever it is.
Which is 100% exactly what Swami says in that book, which is that when we try to express ourselves, we find out what keeps us from expressing ourselves.
Yeah.
Also, when we put it out in front, we actually look at it and we're looking in a mirror that we couldn't access in other ways. So you're verifying the hypothesis of his book, correct?
One of the, yeah, absolutely, completely. One of the processes that we went through um, at one of the workshops, we did a huge collaging process, and then we paired up into teams and supported each other in uh, I'm going to say embodying. I don't know how else to express it. Your partner guides you through talking to, moving with, relating to whatever it is that you've created. And brilliant, crystal clear images and understandings have come through for me. And I had one experience where our assignment was to when we were collaging, to take out any image that spoke to us loudly. So whether it was like a yes, I love that, or ooh, I hate that, whatever it was. And I collected, and I had one picture that I just kept going back to, and I wouldn't take it out of the book. I didn't like it at all, and I didn't want it on my piece. And finally, I realized you have to put it in. And so I did, and it was this. It was a face of probably like a Greek god or something. And then I covered it up with three-dimensional, or no, I guess it was like a leaf covering up its face. And anyway, I didn't like it at all. It really was disturbing in a certain way to me. And then there was this other part of the collage where I'd made this three-dimensional spiral, and it was really tight in on itself. And I went through this process, and then I came back out and did more work on the collage. And what ended up happening was the leaf got peeled away. Light and fire and energy started coming out of that one piece of art. And then the spiral uncurled itself. And I'm saying it uncurled itself because it wasn't like, oh, I think I'm going to uncurl this now.
Mm-hmm.
I think in that moment it actually had slid to the floor, and that was the only part not attached. So it like completely took itself out of the picture. And when I put it back on, it was this beautiful snaking trail that led to a picture of Yogananda with a huge sunburst.
Wow.
And it linked this blockage that I had
Wow.
with this beautiful golden pathway to the guru. And it linked exactly with an image that I had received through this embodying. And I can still see it crystal clear in my mind and feel it alive right here.
Isn't that interesting? I'm going to take a couple of minutes, which I don't always do because I had such a clear. When my friend Tushti died, Surendra's wife, I was in Portland with her. Some of you, if you go on my website, you'll see letters I wrote. The Kriya Yoga Way of Dying. I was there for about 3 weeks in the house. She was dying in the living room. We had a lot of time on our hands. Some of her friends, when she had been healthier, had brought a lot of collage material up, and it was all sitting in the box. So I'm sitting at this table with not much to do. I never thought anything about collage. I didn't respect it. I didn't like it very much, but I was sitting there. So for about 5 days, I was getting up early and staying up late, just making these collages. I made 3 or 4 of them. I had no experiences like yours because I wasn't being led by anything. I had absolutely no respect for them. I had just done them to fill the time, but I had been obsessed in doing it. I intended to throw them away. I have intended to throw them away for the last 4 years. Finally, I laminated them. I gave up trying to throw them away. And they're not on my wall, but they're very important to me. I mean, they're just, I can't, nothing intellectual in me can relate to them at all, but they're very important to me because it was a profound experience. And somehow that experience is embodied in those magazine images pasted onto a piece of paper. It's so much more mysterious than we realize. God is playing with us in ways that we can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I wonder what would happen if you took those and went through a process of diving more deeply into them. I wonder what would come through.
Well, I'm going to go home and pull them out, that's for sure, and just look at them again. They please me. It was a very positive experience. It wasn't a traumatic one. It was a very positive, but they just please me enormously. Somehow they hold the energy of that experience. Did you see how wonderful this is? Isn't it just like there's so much more available to us than we know?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a very good conversation, Shami. Before we go, though, I want to make sure. Dana Lynn Anderson, the Academy of Art and Consciousness, just Google her name, Carrie Ann James, Creativity. We didn't talk about Carrie Ann as much. We didn't get to Carrie Ann. But
I've done a lot of work with Carrie Ann, also some of it in workshops that I was talking about, but she does the same kind of inner art is inner work, and art is self-exploration, and she carries it with such a light touch and a playfulness and an openness to however people are wanting to move. I think when I think of all of the creativity leaders that I've had a chance to work with, there's this space that's created of non-judgment and care and love and openness to whatever a person's expression becomes or needs to be, and it leaves so much space for authenticity and inner growth. It's really remarkable.
And now, when everybody's home with so much time on their hands, both Carrie Ann and Dana are working online. I mean, not everything can be transferred, but much can be transferred. And what you're describing, see, here we are. We're Kriya yogis. You're the disciple of a great master. You have this, and I write and I speak. It's not like I never expressed myself, but what I learned about myself and about artistic self-expression, it just was absolutely invaluable.
Mhm.
And so highly recommended. Thank you for suggesting this topic and sharing it so beautifully, Kashana.
I'm really glad to. Thank you, Asha. And I would also just put a plug in here at the end. I know both Carrie Ann and Dana are offering online things like you just said. Carrie Ann has a series that's starting this afternoon at 4, actually.
Okay.
So if you look up her website, and Dana has something that she's offering on Saturday morning, I think. So if people want to tune into that, it's there.
Okay. God bless you, dear.
Thank you.